Hello everyone, this is Steve Samuel, and I'm wishing you a Merry Christmas from Design Visionaries. And today I thought I would go through some of the techniques required to make a tree-like figure, a Christmas tree. So I'm going to, without further ado, create a model of a tree structure, and I'm going to call it Christmas Tree. Starting in inches, say okay. Okay, so now the very first thing I'm going to do is make a trunk. And the trunk is going to be 6 feet high. So I'm going to, a little point here, and I'm going to dimension it by 6 feet. So that'll scale everything nicely for me. And so now everything I do makes more sense. And I'm going to make a profile. And I'm going to make the profile so that it zigzags a bit and goes up to there. So that's the first thing. So the trunk of this is going to go from fat to small, and it's going to zigzag a bunch. And this is zigzagging in one direction. So now I want to make another sketch. So that's the XY plane. I want to make another sketch in the XZ plane. Okay, and I'm going to include all of that. And I'm going to make another profile. Starts there and zigzags also in a similar way. I'm going to hold my finger on the Alt key so it doesn't keep getting so close to that. Okay, so finish. I only want the curves of one of the sketches. So I tell you what, I'm just going to hide this one. There we go. And I'm going to make composite curves out of that. Connected curves. Grab this one. Go to settings. Join curves, yes. I'm going to make general, associative, hide original, and say OK. So now that I have this all as one curve, I can smooth that out to add fillets. So I go to the smooth curve function, and right here there's a little button that says Add Transition Fillets. I select that curve. I specify the radius of the fillets that I require, 4 inches, and hit apply. So now it's all one curve, but it's got these nice fillets, or one curve entity. It's a smooth curve entity. Good. So now that I've done all of that, I want to hide those. Hide. And I want to do it to the next sketch. I'm going to show that. Okay. So let's just make sure show. Oh, wait a second. Wrong one. Let's hide. Let's hide. Let's show. Good. So this is the curve in the other direction. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make it composite with connected curves. I'm going to do a join general and say OK. And then I'm going to go back into smooth curve, and I'm going to smooth this with a radius of 4 and say OK. So now I have 2 smooth curves. Go. And they're in different planes. Okay. And now I'm going to combine them together with a combined projection, and I'm going to select this one, and you can see the plane that it's going to be projecting in. And the next one, you can see the plane that one's going to be projecting in, and I'd like to hide the input curves. Okay. So there we go. There is a trunk now that has kind of a random shape. And now we make the, for reasons that will be obvious a little later, is we're going to put a number of points on there, like 30, evenly spaced. We've got to say 30 points, and say apply. All right, now we have to make a trunk that is fat on the bottom, small on the top. We're going to go to the sketcher and go on path and select this last little bit and move the path down to there and say OK. And now I'm going to make a trunk shape with my spline that is closed. So there we go. There is a shape of the trunk. It's roughly circular, but it isn't circular because it's natural. This point remains selected. There. So that's the shape of my trunk. And finish. Okay, and now I need to sweep that along this crazy guide path with a perimeter law. So there I go to Surface, Sweep, and I select the section. I select the guide curve. There it is. And I know that everything is smooth because of all the techniques that I've used. And I'm going to do a fixed direction. And I'm going to do a scaling factor that is a perimeter law that is varied linearly. And a 6-inch diameter trunk that goes all the way to 2 has a perimeter of about 18 to 18 inches in diameter, in circumference, to about 6. Do I like the look of that? No. It needs to be smaller on the bottom. Even smaller. Needs to be much smaller on the top. There. There's my wild trunk, and say OK. OK. OK, next up, I need to do a bunch of branches that come out. And in order to do that, I'm going to make a curve that kind of bends over from this little point right here. And in order to do that, I'm going to create a datum plane that is parallel to the XY plane, but goes through this little point. Hold on. Let's Control B some of these points. Let's filter for points. And let's start our branches here. Right there. So now I'm going to do a datum plane that goes through that point there and is parallel to the XY plane. Say OK. And do a sketch on that datum plane. And I'm going to take a spline, and I'm going to include that little point there. And I'm going to put the spline that starts there and goes out here and is not closed and goes to there. So this is going to be a branch that bends off like this. Okay. And for reasons that'll become obvious in a moment, I'm going to put a little datum axis that goes also through that point and is parallel to the y-axis. And now I'm going to do a revolve of this little curve segment around that datum axis as a sheet. There we go. So that's what we have so far. That's the basis of our Christmas tree. Cool. And now we have to make a branch. But in order to create the branch, we need to do curve on surface. There's the surface. Wait a second. Let's actually hide the trunk for a second. Okay. And we're going to do curve on surface. There's the surface. Specify points. We'll start in the middle. And we'll make a nice little curve that comes out like that. And we'll do another one. Comes out like this. And we'll do another one. It goes out like that. This is the artistic part of our program. Another one. It comes out like this. Okay. So that's our basic branch. And now we need to tube it. So we're going to start with a 0.5, an inch diameter. Apply. An inch is no good. So I'm going to go back to the tube and I'm going to make it a 1/2 inch. And I'm also going to go into settings and make sure it's single segment. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to F4 so that I can do it again. Well, that didn't work. Surface, more, tube, 0.6, 0.4, something smaller. And I'm going to hit this one and single segment and apply. And this one, single segment and apply. And this one, the 0.2. Obviously, they get smaller as they go. Let's make it 0.2. Yeah, 0.2, 0.3, 0.3. And this one finally. Okay, and we're going to unite it all up. Tree is hard to make. And say okay. Nice. And now that we have that as a single body, we can hide this guy. And we can do a pattern geometry. Pattern geometry. I'm going to grab this thing as a geometry, and I'm going to specify a vector on a circular array. You put 6 of them there. And say OK. I want all those things to be united together. I guess united together is redundant. I want them to be united. And say OK. It's kind of like the word reiterate, right? Do you need to reiterate? If you're iterating, you only need to iterate once, don't you? I don't know. OK, so this is the basic piece of geometry. Now we're going to pattern along our trunk, but they have to get smaller as they go up. And I also want them to rotate so that they don't all line up. So what do? I put two entities on this piece of geometry. The very first entity is a scale entity. So I'm going to scale body, and I'm scaling the whole body. And I'm scaling it by 0.99. And I'm scaling it about that center point that I started with, which I can't see right now until I go to rendering style static wireframe. And there's the point that I'm scaling by, and say OK. So there's a scale entity in my creation of this thing. Good. And now there also needs to be a rotation. And so I'm going to go into the synchronous modeling, move face. And I'm going to select all the faces. I'm going to specify that same vector. And I'm going to specify an axis point, that same point. And I'm going to give it a 20-degree rotation and say OK. So now I have a scale and a rotation in the mix. So if I start with this tube, that tube there, and a bunch of other tubes, and I grab all of the entities there, and I make them tree branch. So that means I have to do a feature group called tree branch. Say OK. That's the entity now that I have to pattern in all these spots. And as the pattern goes up the tree, I want to change the rotation, and I want to change the scale. Fun. So finally, to finish off this tree, I'm going to do a pattern feature, and it's got to be variational because that's the smart one. And I'm going to pattern general, and I'm going to pattern this feature group. And it says scale body is not supported and will be ignored, and unite do not support changing the pattern, whatever. But I know that's not really true. So let's go at it. Scale body will be ignored. Ouch. Well, let's see what happens. So I'm going to say specify point. I'm going to specify this point right here. That's my from point. And now I'm going to do a bunch of 2 points. So I'm going to have one right here. That's a 2 point. That's a 2 point. 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 And 2 point. Now you see these reference points, they have to be on those points, on the 2 points. And this is the reference point of the original, and that's got to be put here. So I'm going to go up to reference point, and I'm going to grab this and I'm going to push it right there. Right there. So you see how all those reference points now line up to the 2 points. Okay, and now it gets funny. Because now I want to do a different rotation on each one of these pattern features or pattern members. So I'm going to click on Use Spreadsheet. And it brings up that spreadsheet. Lovely, 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 lovely. And now I've got to find the rotation, which was one of the last entities, last features. So there's the scale feature. And there's the move face. So So this this bunch of features goes to the 10th row. I'm going to move that up and use it as a ruler. And I'm going to now put in different rotations. So there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rotations. So if I go 36 degrees on each one, I'll say equals, I'll put 36 here. And then on this one, I'll say equals P3 plus 36. Oops, wow, what was that? Equals, I'm sorry, equals P2. Equals P2 plus 36. Good. And then we can just go down like that. So there, you've got many angles there. And then here's the, oh, I'm sorry, that was the angle. That was the scale factor I was messing with. So this one should be 0.9. And this one should be, let's see, I want to go from 1 to like 0.1. So I should, and there's about 10 of them. So I'm gonna make this P2 minus 0.1. Let's see if that'll work. And I'll grab this and go down so that the last one is 0.1. That's good. And here's the angle, which I go from 36, and then I say equals Q2 plus 36. And then I grab the little corner, and I push it down like that, and I get quite a nice variation. So the scale factor goes down and down and down and down, but I'm a little worried because when I patterned it, it said it was going to ignore the scale factor. And I really need it to scale. So I may have to scale each one individually, which wouldn't be terrible because there's only 10 of them. But let's go. So, so now I hit the little X and I say, make sure it saves everything. And I'm going to get the little green arrows at each pattern member. There they are. And I'm going to say, OK. And all of these will be standalone trees. Now, they did not scale. But that's OK, because there's that many of them. They are certainly, here's the trunk. They're certainly, look at that. It looks a little too uniform, doesn't it? But when I scale them, it might really come and do what we want. So I'm going to say Control B here. I'm going to hide the trunk again. And now I'm going to hide some of these points. So I'm going to say Control B. And I'm going to filter for points. And I'm going to hide these. And this one, this one, this one, and this one, and this one, and these two, and this one, and say OK. Cool. And I missed this one. I missed this one. I missed this one. And say OK. OK, so now it's time to scale. And this one will be 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. Piece of cake. How do we do it? We go to Scale Body. We select the body. And let us go to rendering style static wireframe so we can see the point. And so we've got the body. We have to specify the correct point each time. There's the point for that one. And this one goes to 0.9. And apply. We grab the next one. And this one goes to 0.8. But it's got to be scaled around the correct point. A point in there somewhere. There it goes. Apply. Next one, 0.7. Oops. 0.7. About this point here. Get in there and really get that point. Nice. This one here, 0.6. This one there. 0.5. 0.4. 0.3. 0.2. And 0.1. Well, there you have it. Bring the trunk back. Whoops. Let's see what it looks like all shaded. There we go. I think the trunk is overpowering my little branches. So it should come to a sharper point and be slighter on the trunk. So I'm going to go and I'm going to make it a 7.25 instead. That's very Dr. Seussian, isn't it? So there's my Christmas tree trunk. And I'm going to unite it all together. Unite. Grab the trunk. Grab all the branches. And say OK. And that is a very nice little Charlie Brown-like Christmas tree. I need some nice balls on it. Hanging balls. So let's see. A nice way to do that is to distribute points all over this thing and put the balls on random points. I could be here for a very long time doing that. And you're probably, anxious to get to that big fat cup of eggnog that's waiting for you. I'm just going to do a few and suggest a method. So I'm going to do point set, and I'm going to do points on face points. And I'm going to grab a bunch of faces. You can see how tedious this might be. That's way too many points, by the way. But when I distribute points on the faces like this, I can then do the spheres. There's a sphere here. Let's say they're all 1 inch. There's one here. And there's one there. I'm just going to suggest a method here. Oops. I don't want to unite. I want none. There we go. So I should probably do, as an alternative, point on face. Ah. Now I can really jam. So I'm putting all of these spheres randomly on this tree. I'm going to soon take them all and move them down about 1 inch so they look like they're hanging, and that will be my method. As you can see, I can go very quickly. The middle mouse button. This is the way. I've never done this before, so that's why I had to take a few missteps. But that is unavoidable if you're modeling something very strange that you've never modeled before. You have to invent a method. You have to envision a method. And years ago when I started Design Visionaries, I thought that there's always a visionary way to do different designs. And I started by doing a lot of computer-aided design for a company called Pratt & Whitney, which makes fantastic jet engines. And at Pratt & Whitney, there was always an ethic, a very incredibly intelligent ethic, and really smart people who would invent better ways of doing things. And that's really how I got my start in this business. The jet engine is a very complex device, and it's got a little bit of everything. And so we always had to be very inventive. So I'm going to leave it there. So there's all the spheres. And in order to make them look like they're hanging, I want to move them all. Or better yet, I'll take the whole tree and move it 1 inch up. So let's do that. Let's hide, Control B. Let's hide the tree. Let's hide the points and the datum planes and the coordinate systems and the curves and the sketches. Let's do Control J. Grab all of these nice little spheres and color them red. Let's bring back the trunk. The trunk. And Control J. And color it brown. Better brown. Deeper brown. There we go. And let's move it up 1 inch by Control T. We're going to specify a distance in this direction, and it's going to go up by, let's try 2 inches. Okay. Okay, so now, well, that was a little too far. Let's go 1 inch. There, so now it looks like the balls are hanging a bit. And some of them turned brown. Oh, I guess 2 of them were united. So I'll just say Control J, and I'll do a face. Let's get those 2 faces to be red. Red. And there we have it. That's my Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Should we put it in a base? I think we should. We would be remiss if we didn't put it in a nice base that looks like this. There we go. And we're going to revolve that about this axis here. And we're going to do no Boolean. And we're going to Control J it. Control J. And we're going to make it green. And we're going to shell it out. And we're going to fill it with soil by extruding the base straight up, like so. And we're going to replace face. We're going to replace this face with that face. And we're going to give it a better color. Give it a lighter brown. And there you have it. And let's hit W to get rid of the coordinate system. Let's give it a nice little shade. And we need the shading to be oriented in the y-axis. And there is our Design Visionaries Christmas tree. Again, my name is Steve Samuel from Design Visionaries, and Merry Christmas, everyone. We will be back in the office early January, and if you would like a one-on-one course, that's available here at Design Visionaries. We also work with groups, obviously, and the books, etc. So we would love you to learn these techniques and use them to your great advantage. And Happy New Year and Happy Holidays. Thank you.